इमाम साहब नहीं है
जी नहीं
आप जी प्लीज be seated. Seems to be a British meeting, huh?
All of them, yes, please. Hazur, incidentally, Imam Sahib had asked me about a month ago to invite English friends from my region.
From?
From my regions.
Right.
So this is what was arranged earlier.
Correct. So I'm at your disposal, please. Most welcome, all of you. Some of you I know, most of you I know I have met before. There's only one gentleman, perhaps.
One guest, please.
Yes.
You have met me before too.
Have you met before?
Jalsa Salana 94, Hazur put a he put a question on to
Right.
you.
Right. Please. Brief introduction first and then okay.
Hazur, my name is Rizwan Mohammed. I'm a member of the Hayes Jamaat and I work for BT, British Telecom.
Right.
My first question, the now retired Bishop of Durham talked about the metaphoric resurrection of Jesus rather than a physical resurrection. Have any attempts been made to contact him or any others that have renounced the physical resurrection of Jesus and introduced them to Ahmadiyya?
I think the case of the Bishop of Durham is a very special case. I categorize him with those religious people who gradually withdraw from the real belief in God and a belief in a personal God. So all this is an attempt to move away from religion while remaining within the fold of religion. So such people are not the right target for a community like we, who believe in God and who love to draw people who are moving in the direction of God, not away from God. In his case, is distancing from that image of Christ in which Christianity believes in general, in fact distancing from the reality of God. This is my analysis. If I'm right, then perhaps it will be a futile effort to bring him to the fold of Ahmadiyyat or attempting to bring him to the fold of Ahmadiyyat just because of what he said. It's just a philosophical attitude. You know, when you find no reason, no logic in your beliefs, then you begin to withdraw from that, away from them, not in the direction of another. Please.
Thank you.
Hazur, Mali Carmichael from the Leeds Jamaat.
Yes.
I'm a medical doctor by profession. My first question is,
Medical doctor, in which area do you specialize?
Nephrology.
Nephrology, right.
In view of the shortage of human organ donors, there's a move towards developing means to utilize non-human species as a potential source of organs for human transplantation. Now, a favoured species, based on various physiological reasons, is that of the pig. What is the Islamic viewpoint on such transplantation if it were to be feasible?
You see, I think it's too early to opine on that because we don't know what other effects that transplant would have on the general physiology of man and his nature, his thinking, etc., etc. Life is far too complicated to be disposed of like these questions, which are very superficial in fact. You do something and there is a system of ecology within the human system, body, or everything is influenced somehow. Even if one gland is influenced, to some degree the signals are sent to other glands and they also are definitely influenced. Of course, not sometimes visibly, but they are influenced. Pituitary gland is just one gland, but you know as a doctor, it can play havoc with the body if the balances are disturbed. So this is what I'm talking about. Transplant in itself is all right because man is made superior to other animals obviously. He is the summit of evolution. As such, if other animals are sacrificed on the altar of man, in principle there is no objection. But when you talk of pig, and you know that pig, the eating of the flesh of pig has been forbidden, both in, not both, but in all three major religions, Judaism, Christianity and Islam. When I say all three, some Christian eyebrows would be raised, not in Christianity, but I'm afraid they're wrong. Because Jesus Christ followed the faith of Judaism, and wherever he seems to have chosen a separate line, seems or looked upon as such, there Christians at least have a justification of saying, in that much we don't follow Judaism. But nowhere have I read that Jesus Christ ever ate the flesh of pig or permitted his followers to eat the flesh of pig. So that is why I think I'm quite right when I say that Christians are also told by their religion not to eat the flesh of this animal. Now the rest is speculation. Why is it forbidden? Is it forbidden to establish the principle of propriety by God, that all that you eat because of my permission and I am the master, to determine whether people follow him as the supreme master and proprietor of everything? So where he stops us, we stop. Like the fruit, the tree of evil fruit in the beginning of our story that began with Adam and Eve. You can partake of any fruit you like, but not this tree, that sort of thing. So such orders like to refrain from eating the flesh of a certain animal may also remind you of that tree which was forbidden. So if that is the philosophy, then the question will be raised religiously as to whether a part of that animal or an animal or an organ raised on the body of that animal, which has originally human genes, for instance, will fall into the same category or not. So that's a purely religious question. But there are other possible questions which can be raised. Did God do it arbitrarily, without any rhyme or reason? Does God act like this? Or maybe he did not explain the reasons, but it had certain benefits for the human beings in general if they abstained from eating the flesh of pig. I think it is possible. Some bad effects have been noticed by research scholars like doctors, etc., who tell us that the incidence of heart attacks or thrombosis are higher among those who eat the flesh of pig, largely because of the fats in this animal, which tend to create higher level, make the level of cholesterol higher than in case of other animals' flesh, etc. But many have told us that this fatty degeneration on the skin and the arteries appearing bigger and larger and capillaries appearing in the skin, obviously and evidently, this also is related to the eating of flesh of pig. And some tell us that no, it's just like another animal. If you eat too much of fat anyway, you suffer from all these problems. So as far as the physical debate is concerned, I doubt if that could be the strong reason strong enough for God to pick this animal alone. So it's a doubtful area. I'm just suggesting a possibility. The more likely is the moral effect of this animal. The moral effect of this animal on human morality. This effect could result directly from the eating of its flesh and transfer of its characters through the flesh into the human characters, or by accepting the immoral behavior of this animal. With reference to animals, there is no behavior which is immoral. Of course, I understand that. But when I say that, I am pointing out to two things which are particular to this animal as against others. Homosexuality runs supreme in this animal as compared to all other animals. Second, the eating of the flesh of its own species. When the pig normally is not a carnivorous, it's a vegetarian. Everybody knows that. But it occasionally also has a taste of flesh as well. But when its own small ones die, the young ones die, it eats the flesh of its own children, of its own babies. So this is a horrible feature of this animal's character, that it becomes a cannibal while normally it is not a meat eater. On the other hand, the beasts abstain from eating the flesh of their own sort, like lions. They would starve to death rather than to start attacking each other and devouring each other's flesh. So I'm just pointing out at all these areas where we notice that these characters can either be transferred, or if you don't take note of them or don't register a protest against them, then you may fall prey to the similar habits. So that's another possibility which I'm pointing out. But we don't know exactly whether it is for this or for that that God forbade us. He did. So the question should be thoroughly investigated on all these counts which I have suggested. If what you have suggested can transplant some characters as well in the human beings, and the effect would be as if one had eaten the flesh of pig, then I would rather abstain from it and won't care whether I live with a healthy kidney or a diseased kidney, as long as I do. But it all depends on a greater, deeper research in this area. Right? So that's why I just don't want to dispel the question by saying yes or no. That would be too arbitrary of me if I said that.
That's fine, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Rashid Corsten, I'm from North Cambridgeshire and I work in the motor trade.
Right.
There are many people who have accepted Islam during their life as opposed to being born into it. In many cases, this causes a dramatic change in what constitutes sin, an obvious example being the consumption of pork or alcohol, which is considered normal in Western society but sinful in Islam. How would these sins, committed innocently before the acceptance of Islam, be considered on the Day of Judgment?
Now, when you say Western society as against Islam, this is not the right question. It's a distorted question.
Right.
Because it's not a question of West or East. Islam should be compared with religions. So the issue would be in Christianity it is permitted, and in Islam it is not. That sort of thing.
Yes.
You see, the problem of accepting any religion from any other religion is universally the same, essentially the same in character. Hindus have a different way of life. When they become Muslims, they have to change accordingly. So the Buddhists have a different way of life. They find it very difficult to eat the flesh of cow when they come from Hindus. So it's the other way around. It becomes difficult for you not to eat the flesh of swine or pork or whatever you call it. But these problems are universal. So the question should be addressed in its universality. When you change your religion, you must also change some of your habits. Now, is it worthwhile to do that, or is it essential to do that? If it is essential for a religion to speak on those those areas of human activities, then if you accept it as valid, then you have to accept the teaching in detail as well. Because a religion is not just a set of beliefs in God. All religions also prescribe a way of life. And when you accept religion, you must be ready for all this. In the beginning, of course, it produces shock waves in the society. But after a while, people get used to it, and things are tidied over. Like it happened during the spread of Christianity in Europe in old days. The ways and style of life was so different from that of Christianity that they had to undergo a much greater change than you have to undergo if you become a Muslim from a Christian. So, as a whole, this question, as I have discussed, should be understood in its larger prospect, and I think delve deeper into I've done myself. One finds logic and wisdom behind all these, whether they permit you something or forbid you to do something, they all have some wisdom. And for the universality of the community which Islam wants to build, that is universalization of man, bringing it back to one single fold of a human entity, these things which appear small today would appear much more important in the future, when the people from different races and nations and habits and styles of life are welded or mended together into one single community of human beings. Yes, please.
My name is Martin Grubb. I'm a Quaker, also a Christian. Well, that's all. In the book, the Christianity, A Journey to Fiction, you say the Christian world to return to the reality of Christ and to an inherent hypocrisy. To continue to live in a world of myths and legends is potent with grave evils.
That's right.
Now, I very strongly agree with you on that.
So glad, yes.
My question is that doesn't this also apply to the Muslims?
That's right.
In relation to the teaching about Muhammad being the last prophet?
That's right.
Now, I did have an opportunity to question you once before, and you replied that the word last is not meant in the temporal sense, but in the sense of the ultimate or the last word. And of course I accept that. But is it not time for the Muslims to recognize that this is also a myth? Because God is living. God's word cannot be confined to words written in the past, important though those are.
That's right.
That's all.
I agree, absolutely. Now, because I agree with the import of your question, so I don't see any reason to give an answer. How would I answer a question with which I fully agree?
Oh, okay then.
You see? Understand the basic wisdom of this question.
Yeah.
It's high time not only for the Muslims and Christians, but also for followers of other religions to return to the basic realities of their religious faith as it started.
Yeah.
as they started these faiths. And when you go back into time and try to reach the sources of your religion, there you find far more commonality in the teachings of religions than if you compare them today, as today in this world. So that will help us first reach the points of commonality which are highly essential to bring man into one single entity of human beings. And secondly, there the teaching is pure, unadulterated and simple. Most of things which we find as not only the way of life but find by way of superstition are outgrowth of later dates. In the beginning, in no religion do you find superstitions at all. They in fact all condemn superstitious lives, etc. So that is why it's very important for Christians to re-examine those parts of New Testament where demonology is discussed and how Jesus Christ worked against demons. We have found a solution. We believe that it was taken far too literally, while Jesus only believed and taught in parables. And if you accept this, and a Christian has to accept that Jesus largely spoke in parables, then you begin to see sense behind those things, which is real, which is based on common sense, or can be interpreted in a way that the human common sense would accept it. So that is again another attitude which I would like to be imbibed among all the people of the world, to return to their origin, where the religions began, and sources of religion, find commonality there, and then try to interpret those teachings, those parts of teachings, which at that time can more easily be handled and interpreted than at a later date.
Thank you.
You see?
My name is Edwin Mortimer. I'm from the Southall Jamaat. I am a caretaker for an insurance company. The Church of England has not fully denounced the National Lottery. It is only asking the government to reduce the winning amount to £1 million.
Reduce the amount to £1 million for what?
To £1 million jackpot.
That's lottery you're talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
You are from northwest of England?
South Wales. Oh, sorry. I'm from West London, Southall Jamaat.
But originally, I mean.
Oh, South Wales.
South Wales. That's right. That is why it was slightly difficult for me to.
I speak a bit fast. Yes, I beg your pardon.
You know, have a slight accent, Welsh accent.
That's right.
Yes. Okay. The lottery, the issue of lottery is not the issue of amounts of money involved at all. It's an issue of trends. Once you accept the trend of waging your money on chances, then you destroy the attitude of the whole people. And this is against which objection should be taken, exception to be taken, should be made. Exception to be taken, and it should be strongly condemned. Already a lot of damage has been done to the British character, because this wagering also affects the whole attitude of a people, and it doesn't just stop at that one attempt to increase one's money by depending on a chance in a million or so. It is not just that. It is the attitude to short-circuit the economic wheel and to earn quick, easy money. If you risk something for that, then you get committed to it, that way of life and that principle. And this short-circuiting of economy is at the basis of most crimes in the world today. Now, people may think I'm exaggerating it, but I'm not at all. I understand the philosophy of crime, and I know these things will abet crime or criminal tendencies. And a sense of irresponsibility is also sown among people who would go for that sort of chance money. Already enough damage has been done to the way of the human society by way of these, these casinos and these machines and roulettes and this and that. They have done far greater damage to the people than brought benefit to the people. Far greater in one sense, not in one sense alone, in many senses. For instance, it's the basic principle of lottery and other such games of chance that most of the participants must suffer. And the greater the attraction is, the greater must be the likelihood of a larger number to suffer and a smaller number to benefit. It's a simple mathematical question. If you increase the number of sufferers to the proportion 1 into 1 billion, those rare things who would benefit to such a large degree that it will perhaps create more urge among the non-have-nots to try again. So, although the quantum of suffering increases and the incidence of suffering increases, yet by the same token, more interest is created in lottery and other games of chance. Is that right or wrong?
Right.
It's obvious. Now, those who come into easy money like that, they're also destroyed. And they cannot put it to a good, sensible use. Most often, they waste their money and their families, etc. They indulge in the sort of life which is not good as a whole for society. So I don't see any reason why lottery should be permitted at national level by the government. You see?
Yeah, thank you.
It's not a question of £1,000 lottery or £10,000 lottery. Even if it's 1 to 10 ratio, even such lottery should also be strongly condemned and discouraged.
Thank you very much.
Daniel Paul Corney from the Barking and Dagenham Jamaat. My question is derived from last weekend when I heard of the assassination of the...
Are you speaking loud enough for the message to be recorded? Is it all right? Okay.
My question is derived from last weekend when I heard of the very sad assassination of the Israeli Prime Minister, Yitzhak Rabin.
Right? Yes.
And my question is, what do you believe are the prospects now for peace following this assassination?
I couldn't exactly follow the question. Could you?
That is assassination of...
that I understand, but...
And what are the consequences of a peace between Palestinians and Israel?
That's what I thought, but I was not sure what you wanted to find out, whether you want me to condemn this act or just my assessment of the situation which may ensue from this.
Yes.
Is that what you want?
Yes.
Right. First of all, already some features have appeared before us to set the line for the future. The Jewish community, for the first time, have got split visibly, although they have been split for ages. Visibly in the sense that you can see, the cracks appearing. And for the first time, they have started searching for the criminals in their society who have been planning attacks on Palestinians and others to disrupt the possibilities or the prospects of peace. Previously, when these things was done, they said the Muslim terrorists were doing it. And they were just blaming the Jews unnecessarily, unjustifiably. Now they know that among them are the terrorists, and they would spare nothing to destroy the peace, the process of peace. So this has come to surface. On the other hand, for the Muslim extremists to jubilate, to have jubilations over this assassination has brought the Muslim world to shame. And this must have also infuriated even those who have been siding with the issue of peace, the scenes of Muslims jubilating and dancing at the death of or the murder of their prime minister and so on. So some ugly things have appeared here and there. Now both these elements among the Jews and among the Muslims will continue to jeopardize the establishment of peace for their own respective reasons. But I believe that this incident has, in the end, in the in overall evaluation of the loss and gains, has helped the achievement of peace, because for the first time the Jewish leadership is very seriously committed to peace and has survived the shock which could have turned their direction and path. And this is a very hopeful feature to have appeared from this unfortunate incident. And it also shows that America is deeply involved in this time seriously. And this is going to have repercussions not only in this area but also in America itself. Already the Jewish community of New York is divided in these two, and they are more perhaps orthodox in their totality than the Jewish community of Palestine or of Israel. And all over America, the shock waves of this explosion has bifurcated the Jewish society there. Obviously, American politics will have a different type of influence from the Jewish superiority or supremacy in many areas of their, like economy and medical services and pharmaceutical industry and other trades and monetary, let me say, monetary is not the word. You see, those areas where you decide about the values of money and things, what do you call them? The financial centers where with pulls of strings, you play havoc with the world economy by raising the money and the value and lowering the money value, etc. Money market is called, isn't it? So Jews have also been at the head of the money market, and they have such a strong hold over the money market in America that through that they can pull strings and bring about changes all over the world. So this community there has been split because of this incident. So it's not just a bullet or two shot at one man. This has split the Jewish body from top to foot. And American policymakers will take account of this in their own homeland. They have to decide which side to turn to. Obviously, they have no choice. Choice is already made. They have to side with the more progressive and more liberal Jews in their own countries. But who is the stronger? Who has that mafia-like control over these things? These are the things which are yet to be seen. It's too early for us to decide. So your question is very solid and I think very important, that this incident should not be taken as a solitary incident of a murder of a prime minister. It is going to have its shock waves, spread through, reach all the corners of the earth because of the Jewish community and its importance. Right?
Okay.
Please.
During the last century in Lourdes, a town in southern France, a young peasant girl, Bernadette Soubirous, had a series of apparitions or visions of the Virgin Mary. During these apparitions, the Virgin Mary spoke to Bernadette. Is this possible?
To have visions is possible, why not? But to decide whether they are divine visions or psychic visions is a different issue altogether. So they could be psychic visions, they could be illusions or similar psychic products of psychic diseases, or they could have they could be a real contact with God, and they might have been manipulated by God, because this is in principle right. What I meant to say is, in principle, what we must accept is that there are some visions which are manipulated by divine forces. You can't dispel them because such visions took place among Christians or Jews or Hindus or whatever it is. If in principle you accept that such visions do occur, where their strings are moved by the fingers of God, as if metaphorically, then you must also give this incident a fair chance of that at least. So the claim would be not illogical if somebody claims. Like Joan of Arc claimed, and as such in principle you can't dispel that claim as false and stupid. So this is possible. But personally I believe far more likely it is to be a psychic product of a girl who has been brought up all her life in love of Mary, and when she becomes far too excited in that experience, she could have various illusions and apparitions appear to her. This is common, this is seen everywhere in the world. How to decide, this is the question. This is the real question which should have been raised. How should we know whether Mary did appear to her and whether the vision was correct? In two ways we can say. What is the impression of that girl? What did Mary tell her? If Mary told her things which are definitely wrong, can be proved wrong by the exercise of human logic and by the study of Old and New Testament, for instance, if not the Quran, then one has to say that that girl might be innocent in the sense that she didn't concoct things. She saw things and innocently she told them, but they have no substance in them. There is nothing which can make us take them seriously. The second is the outward signs of divine manipulation. Are there any? Did Mary tell her something of things which she didn't know, and the later study proved them to be right? Did she speak of the future of a country, of the world, or anything else of which man as such could not have guessed? And yet, with the passage of time, it came true. If so, then one of course has to take it seriously. because the knowledge of the unknown only belongs to God. So then a connection between God and that vision would be established. But the nature of the vision itself is very important. If you study it closely, then you will know that it is based on the personal faith and commitments of that girl rather than, and it is, I mean to say, it's a subjective experience, not an objective one. It is an inner experience, not an outer experience coming into link with the inner experience. Right?
My question concerns the HIV virus, which is responsible for AIDS. Do you, sir, believe that HIV should simply regard it as another infectious disease, or do you feel that it has a more symbolic meaning for the times in which we live?
I have always maintained that all the sex-related diseases have a peculiarity which distinguishes them from other diseases, and they are a natural punishment for permissiveness against the religious instructions all over the world. Although the instructions vary from one religion to another, but in basic principle, in all religions, the instructions are the same, that you must establish relationship with the opposite sex through a legalized institution, an institution which is authorized to join you together. Now, the nature of that legislation may differ from religion to religion. In Christianity, you don't marry among the next of kin, the close cousins. In Islam, you do, and there are so many other variants found in different religions. Yet, the fundamental principle is that of a divine sanction, however expressed, but a divine sanction of meeting of the two opposite sexes. This is what we know as marriage. So marriage law is different, but the marriage is an established institution all over the world in all religions. The question is, whenever you violate these principles, then why should some diseases appear which are specific to this act of violation? They are not natural because it's impossible for you to conceive of any lawfully married husband and wife whose parents have also been, loyal to each other, suffering from even gonorrhea. Syphilis is out of question. Or herpes, sex-related herpes, or AIDS. Why are they unthinkable? But other diseases like cold or influenza don't make any distinctive line between the people who behave correctly and people who do not behave correctly from religious point of view. So all those sex-related diseases which one can determine as specifically confined to such people who violate religious injunctions. They must deliver a message. And the message to me is very obvious. Why is God interested only in punishing sex-related crimes in a way that you find a specific relationship of that punishment with such crimes only? The murders, the usurpations of other rights, this corruption and so on. Why is there not any visible disease attached to that or related to that? Why Allah takes this issue of sex so seriously only? This is the question. And that has to be answered by a religious person, and I'm going to attempt to answer that question as well. The fact is that the sex relationship has a purpose, and that purpose has been specifically mentioned in the Holy Quran and many other religions. The pleasures related to sex were provided to man for the purpose of the survival of the human species and for keeping its purity, and experimentation by God of married products of marriage, is within within the scope of a certain set of legislations. So if it continues to be uninterrupted, then the human society would develop much more healthier in general. And this experimentation of nature will continue uninterrupted. If you break it and reject the purpose of sex and its related pleasure, then you have rejected the scheme of things of man's creation. For instance, homosexuality, which is very closely related to AIDS, as you mentioned. What is the sanction for homosexuality? What is the valid scientific support for this? We religiously call misbehavior. Many attempts are being made to prove that there is something wrong with the genes of such people, so they are genetically controlled people. As such, when they desire homosexuality, let them have it. Even they could become church ministers, because they are playing in the hand of their natural impulses. This is one argument which is now being raised. First of all, the evidence which I have studied is so meager and so meaningless, untrustworthy, that only the wishful thinkers can accept it as a valid scientific evidence. Number two, this evidence, whatever it speaks, is contrary to the whole message of evolution. You see, one swallow cannot make a spring. One odd observation here or there could be a sort of mad mutation, but it will not be justified to understand the philosophy of life based on this odd observation. So we are talking of the whole philosophy of life. That philosophy can only be understood with relation to the human life, evolution of life as such. And we know for certain that all pleasures which we have acquired as animals are a result of a specific purposeful exercise to create five senses, and to create five senses and relate them to our inner psyche and ultimate consciousness. And these pleasures have a counterpart in the sense of pain related in those areas. And both of these are essential for propelling the life, the wheel of evolution on and on perpetually. If these two forces were withdrawn at any level, the progress would come to a standstill. Now, this is the philosophy of life which no one can reject, who has an iota of common sense and an iota of knowledge of how life moves on to higher orders. These two senses, remember, pleasure and pain, have played the most vital role in all evolutionary processes. Remove them and the evolution would come to a standstill there and then. And for each pleasure we have an underwritten message of wisdom and philosophy. If there was, for instance, there were no pleasure attached to the act of conjugation, then will life prosper as much as in case when the player was provided, or will it be threatened of even extinction? I believe even when we know this player has a very important role in the society, yet many people cannot take the burden of families and raising children, and they have to sacrifice this player for that sake, or avoid the consequences of player through contraceptives and so on and so forth. So it is not easy for man to take the burden of his offsprings and family, etc., etc. So there are two things which have already been done by nature. Number one, a sort of player which is so intense that according to Freud, this runs supreme in all pleasures and excitements, is attached to the act of sex. So that whatever the cost, you must have your pleasure. It is purpose, and the purpose is related to the survival of species. And second, the love between a generation and the future generation, next generation, which has a very special bondage and also plays a very important role in your desire to have babies. And that again is related to the philosophy of desire to being perpetual. You see, if one did not have the desire to be perpetual or everlasting, there will be no beyond the scope of revenge into the area of cruelties. Mm-hmm. This is the description of the Jewish society which Jesus had inherited. Mm-hmm. Where the Jews, taking advantage of the teachings that tooth for tooth and eye for eye, went for 10 eyes for one, or 100 eyes for one, or the whole denture, or the 32 teeth, instead, if even one was partially damaged. So he reversed that attitude exactly in the opposite direction. Mm. That was Messiahhood, which we do not witness ever happening before in the Jewish experience of the history. Mm. Mm. Never.
Yes, yes.
The second, to transfer the stress from form to spirit. Mm. Yet not rejecting form, as St. Paul misunderstood, I believe. Mm. He never rejected form. Mm. He stressed the importance of spirit over the importance of form. So that he said, if you have empty utensils without any spirit or substance in them, they won't be of any avail to you. Even to have a drop of substance or spirit in you is far better than having a large, big form, physical form, empty of spirit and substance. So that was the second change of attitude which Jesus brought about. But this was not brought about collectively. It was brought about individually to begin with, a Reformation course which was taken in the form of a movement started by a single person, which gathered momentum as it grew further, and more individual cases joined it, offering sacrifice around a single person who claimed to be the Messiah. Now, the second advent also requires that a person should be born in a religion who should transform the attitudes and appear as a single person, like a single drop of yogurt working in a ton of milk, for instance, but gradually converting all that came around him and gaining substance from the surrounding society, increasing in size, emerging larger and larger until it started, spilling over to other containers of milk, for instance, and universally increasing not only the number but the number of the reformed people, the number of those who had learned from Jesus himself how to live and how to conduct to other people. This, I believe, should be the second advent of Jesus Christ. This should happen in a religion which has appeared after Jesus Christ, fulfilling his own prophecies. If that has not happened, then Jesus would not appear again, because I believe it to be prerequisite for that great event of Jesus' return. He would return where and in which form? If you leave the question open to a discussion, he might have appeared among any people anywhere in the world, but it has not created enough noise and disturbance and uproar for the whole world to have noticed it and to have started benefiting from it. Jesus prophesied of the coming of another reformer who was not Son of God. This is highly important, and I draw your attention to the parable of the vineyard. In that parable, he specifically mentions his own coming by using the symbol of the son of the proprietor of that vineyard. And he says even he was rejected. And the people living around rebelled against his authority and still ran away with the fruit of the orchard. Then the proprietor came himself in person. And from then on, the things began to change. Then the proprietary rights of the proprietor were returned to him. That is the parable of pivotal importance to understand these prophecies of Jesus Christ in real significant terms. Otherwise, philosophically and psychologically, any people can Jesus has come into us and be born. The question is, how was this parable fulfilled? I believe by the advent of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the founder of Islam, this parable reached its ultimate realization. Between Jesus Christ and Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we find no founder of any religion anywhere in the world. He comes and he claims to be as if he is the manifestation of God, but yet not God. And in the same sense, we accept Jesus to be Son of God as if he was Son of God, but not the real Son of God. And this is mentioned in the Holy Quran as has not been claimed anywhere else in the world in such specific terms. But particularly after Jesus, when we read those verses of the Quran where coming of Prophet Muhammad is mentioned in terms of coming of God, in the clearest terms, yet his never having misunderstood it, never said anything to his followers that they should take him as manifestation of God in person. So he explained away all the various mystics of the previous religions, where such parables ultimately, unfortunately, led them away from God rather than in the direction of God. So a parable so strong and positive was used by him. Ma ramaita is ramaita walakin Allah rama. It was not you who threw a handful of pebbles, but it was God who did. It is not your hand. It is your hand over those who get initiated at your hand. It is your hand, but it is not your hand. It is the hand of God. Now, anyone, who would have stood for aggrandizement of his own person could have quoted these verses by indicating that he is the real representation of God, and so believe in him as God having appeared on earth once again. Not so Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He claimed whatever is said is just metaphor. It only means that I have lost my identity to the superior identity of God. And if a slave is left with no identity of himself, and all the authority which calls his life and motivates him is the authority of his master, then there is no difference between the master and slave in action and direction, because he always acts according to the wish of the master, always takes the same direction as the master would have taken. Hazrat Muhammad SAW explained that it is exactly in the same way that Muhammad is called God, not in any other way, in no way of equal terms, equal status or anything like that. So he came, like Jesus came, as Son of God. And after that, the return of Jesus can be contemplated, not before that. So where has that great historical event, global event taken place, other than in case of Islam, so that we can contemplate the return of Jesus? Now when it happened, it was Prophet Muhammad himself who prophesied the coming of Jesus to save the whole world as his representative. So to my mind, the story is so well organized, well connected, and so logical, and evolving into an ultimate theme, that I am not at all mentally disturbed regarding its validity at all. Thank you.
Well,
it's thought for food.
Yes, I can't.
Yes, it is
can't
thought for
quite see
food.
it. Yeah.
I mean, I don't expect immediate conversion. Necessarily, no one should. And it's against the common courtesy as well to expect you guys to get immediately converted to your views. But sometimes you sow the seed. If the seed is healthy and the soil on which it falls is healthy, then it takes its time to grow. And I'm quite sure, I have no doubt, this soil is healthy. Because he's an honest gentleman who is putting these questions.
Okay.
I will ask you. Please.
Are we Ahmadis allowed to attend Kacham when we get invited by our Sunni friends?
Fun?
Khatam.
What is this khatam? The word khatam has created many problems. They want to do away with all the good things. And they use the term khatam in that sense only. Khatam means ending and finishing. So when they believe that the Prophet has become finished, the prophethood has become finished, the best institution in the world of Reformation is no longer current and no longer operative, then when they finish the Quran itself, it is quite consistent with them. So the term finishing of the Quran is, in my opinion, a very objectionable term. When I celebrate those children who have finished the reading of the Quran, I always remind them, never say we have finished the Quran. No man on earth can finish the Quran. But you have finished the first recitation of the Quran. So first of all, this term is very stupid and imbalanced. Khatme Quran, the way they say it, is not the recitation of the Quran at all. They say that somebody who has died, you come together and read the portions of the Quran bit by bit collectively. And each portion is allocated to the participant so that all the Quran is recited within a matter of 1 hour or 2 hours or less time if there are more participants. So distribute 30 verses to if you distribute 30 verses to each person, and if there are 1,000 persons, imagine the Quran will be finished like that. But to what purpose? To what sense? It's absolutely meaningless. The finishing of the recitation of the Quran is a very important thing. When you read it yourself with attention, delving deeper into the meaning of what you read, That is a very important thing to have happened. If you finish it in that style, then if you celebrate it, okay, I have no objection against that. But the way they finish it, they actually finish the very message of the Quran by inviting people to a course of action which is contrary to the Quranic teaching, which does away with the purpose of the Quran itself, which stands for reformation in every individual who recites the Quran. Because the recitation of the Quran is very demanding and taxing in that regard. You try doing it as I have just suggested, meaningfully, delving deeper. There will be many occasions where sometimes your faith will be challenged, you will be put to a trial, because you will not fully understand the import of the verse, and sometimes your faith will be so enhanced and supported that you will feel floating in the air, in ecstasy. Sometimes it will go on pointing at your sins which you had not noticed before, in a way that it will torture you. You will say, God, what I am reading is exposing me, myself to be, and so on and so forth. That is what the recitation of the Quran means, and this is how the Holy Quran presents itself. So every other Khatm Quran, which is contrary to the very basic message of the Quran, is not acceptable. It's only a stupid celebration and eating together after saying we have finished the Quran. And the reward, how would you be rewarded? This again is the question. They say in two ways. The spiritual reward will go to the person who has not recited, who is dead already. The spiritual reward will be awarded to that person around whose body you are reciting this Quran and finishing it, or for whose sake you are doing it even long after his death. So they say that reward of your recitation will be shifted into his account. And what would be your reward? Of course, a feast. You get together, enjoy the food which is offered you. So that is all you get. Do you read any sense in that? Of course not.
Actually, we were asked to attend. We didn't attend.
Good.
Just
Well done.
Nice, thank you.
I think already we are rather late, eh?
30 minutes over.
Okay, so we'll have to present this program in two parts, maybe 45 minutes each, so that when I'm absent from here, then they can fill the blank by running this program again, right? Well, I take leave of you now. There will be some people waiting in the office for some meetings which were already arranged before I came here. Thank you for coming, and come again.